we are glad you have come to the Hawkins House. We want to share a few snippets of fun stories about Christmas and certain culinary delights we think may have happened in this house. We don't know a lot of details about Mrs. Hawkins' cooking abilities, but we have done extensive research about the Christmas foods that were popular during her time in history. We have brought a multitude of artifacts from the museum collection to help you imagine the joy and cheer of Christmas time in early Rogers. The Hawkins family and their descendants lived in this house from 1900 until 1980. Mr. Hawkins owned a livery business, which meant he bought, sold, and traded horse-drawn buggies and wagons. The Hawkins family enjoyed the upper middle class income. We might compare Mr. Hawkins' business to a car dealership today. In her day, Mrs. Hawkins was the traditional housewife, always busy with domestic duties, paying special attention to the daily preparation of family meals. During the Christmas season, the kitchen was aflurry with an array of culinary preparations such as baking, roasting, steaming, and stewing. So let's step back in time and take a look around at how the Hawkins family is celebrating Christmas Day this year. By looking around the kitchen, it is obvious Mrs. Hawkins was a typical Victorian lady who believed the old adage, a place for everything and everything in its place. For example, back in the late 1800s, the Hoosier cabinet was a revolutionary addition to the kitchen for women like Mrs. Hawkins. On Christmas morning, like all other mornings before the sun was up, when the kitchen clock chimed 5:30, she was grateful to have at her fingertips everything needed to make beautiful flaky biscuits, as well as a Hoosier cabinet workspace to roll out the dough. Her flour was stored in the possum belly drawer, round on the bottom, specifically designed to keep away pests. The cabinet had plenty of cupboard space for mixing bowls and the essentials like baking powder, salt, and lard. Mrs. Hawkins spent much of the day mixing, stirring, cutting, slicing, and chopping before boiling, baking, roasting, simmering, stewing, and blanching to prepare delicious meals for her family. It was Mr. Hawkins' job to sharpen the kitchen knives and clean out the wood stoves. The wood-burning stove in the Hawkins House kitchen has a gauge, so there was not so much guesswork as to when the oven was the right temperature. The Christmas Day menu required the oven to be in use most of the day since there were pies and cookies to bake, and of course the entree to cook, like an Ozarks home-cured ham or backyard-raised turkey. Mr. Hawkins was the age to have remembered eating passenger pigeon as one choice of the family's favorite holiday dish. When he was young, it was common to see thousands of passenger pigeons flying in flocks so large that the day sky would turn to darkness until they passed by. Since the pigeons were so easy to hunt, pigeon became a favorite entree with many people. One recipe called for 6 pigeons to be stuffed with potatoes, stewed in celery water for 3 hours, then dredged in flour and browned in pork fat. Each pigeon was then served on a slice of dry toast and smothered in gravy. Of course, there were also many recipes for pigeon pie with a flaky crust. Unfortunately, so many people hunted and feasted until the last one died, and the passenger pigeon sadly became an extinct species in 1914. The Hawkins house had electricity, but no running water, so the children helped carry in buckets of water to fill the pots for boiling, steaming, and simmering of the various recipes. In the dry sink, the dishes were washed, vegetables cleaned, and pots scrubbed, and then the dirty water had to be taken outside and the buckets filled again. In the old days, almost everyone had a walnut tree and or pecan tree in their yard. In the fall, the children would help gather the sweet southern pecans and Ozark black walnuts when they fell from the trees. Walnuts were left until the outer hull dried and turned black. Mr. Hawkins would spend hours cracking the walnuts and pecans to have ready for holidays, pies, and desserts. Mrs. Hawkins would work in the hot summer making preserves, jams, and jellies that would add sweet flavors to the wintertime menu. For the best pies, Arkansas black apples were harvested in the fall. Arkansas peaches were canned in season for exquisite pies and cobblers. We do not know exactly what the Hawkins family Christmas favorite foods were, but we can offer an example of regional traditional favorites from their time period. You have like boiled ham or roast turkey, mashed Irish potatoes, sweet potatoes, green beans, sweet crabapple pickle, hot homemade yeast rolls, jams, jellies, preserves, gingerbread, fruitcake, and pies like apple, pumpkin, and or pecan. Mrs. Hawkins was a church-going woman who believed in the real meaning of Christmas. She never forgot the less fortunate, the sick, and the families in need. Every year, the Rogers Democrat newspaper reported on the local charities and organizations that helped bring Christmas to families who might not otherwise have much to celebrate. There is a box filled with jars of food and a basket of old clothes, a quilt, and a blanket all ready for Mr. Hawkins to put in the family buggy and deliver to the church charity in time for Christmas. The Hawkins family were fortunate to know the joy of giving. This room is where all the dishes of wonderful food are served as the family gathers around the table to enjoy the Christmas feast. The table is covered with a lovely tablecloth of handiwork and lace. The favorite family dishware and heirloom glassware, all in the proper place according to Victorian rules. Every part of the room is decorated to enlighten the dim and cloudy thoughts of Christmas past. How many happy family times have been reflected in the old mirror which is always hung by the front door? We can imagine little Lizzie with a sprig of mistletoe in her hair as she runs in circles around the table. The buffet filled with an abundance of pie, cake, gingerbread, and candy to make even the rowdiest child drowsy and ready for a nap. Notice the children's stockings hanging by the fire. Now empty, they had been filled the night before by Santa Claus with little toys and trinkets and a juicy orange, a rare Christmas treat. In the center of the room, we see the family Christmas tree, decorated with an array of toys, fruits, nuts, and a handmade popcorn and cranberry garland. There are presents under the tree for everyone in the Hawkins family. We can imagine the many oohs and ahs when Mr. Hawkins lit the tiny candles on the tree, and Mrs. Hawkins may have laughingly said, "Even Prince Albert would be impressed with this tree." The water bucket with the swab is kept ready nearby, just in case one of the hot candles leaned too close to a tree branch. There is Christmas sheet music on the piano, ready for the family to gather around and sing their own Christmas carols. After opening gifts, Mr. Hawkins may have suggested the family go into the back parlor and have some hot tea and muffins while they listen to some Christmas songs on the Edison phonograph for a little while.
Christmas Carol, O Come All Ye Faithful, by the Edison Quartet. O come all ye faithful, joyful and triumphant. O come ye to Bethlehem. Come and behold him, born the King of angels. Oh, come, let us adore him. Oh, come, let us adore him. Oh, come, let us adore him. Christ the Lord. Yea, Lord, we greet thee, born this happy morning. Jesus, to thee be glory given. One of the Father, now in flesh appearing. Oh, come, let us adore him. Oh, come, let us adore him. Oh, come, let us adore him. Christ the Lord.
There was only one bed and one bedroom in the Hawkins house, so everyone always asked, where did the children sleep? We don't know for sure, But it is our guess that when the children were small, there could have been a trundle bed that rolled out from under the bed. Lizzie will soon be coming to bed with her new Christmas doll. Her brother Frank will not be far behind with his new favorite Christmas toy. Before long, both children will be asleep with dreams of sugar plums dancing in their heads. Their night clothes are laid out on the bed, but there is still work to do in the kitchen. Fortunately, Mr. Hawkins remembered to fill the reservoir on the kitchen stove, so there was plenty of hot water to wash the dishes. At the end of a long day, as they worked together to finish the last of the Christmas chores, Mr. and Mrs. Hawkins left and talked of how thankful they were for such a wonderful family Christmas in Rogers, Arkansas.